Alyssa Jean's Star Trek Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and this is my review for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 1, Strange Energies. So first order of business, spoiler warning! If you have not seen all the way through Season 2, Episode 1, please go and watch it and then come back and watch this review, otherwise you will be spoiled. So, first of all, let me apologize for the sound. I do have to have a fan on pointed directly at my dog off screen here. I can't have the AC on because it's just too noisy, but I have a fan pointed directly at my dog as I'm recording this, and you're going to hear it in the background, and that is just how it is because it's getting hot here. I did manage to start recording this before we got to peak heat, so it's not as hot as it would be, otherwise I just wouldn't be able to record at all. But you're just going to have to deal with the fan in the background. So I hope it doesn't disrupt the noise too much. If you're following me for the first time, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you enjoy it. And if you're perhaps rediscovering me, you may have known me as Akton Tamko in the past and wondering what happened to me. Welcome back. It's good to see you again. So I wasn't sure if I was even going to do these weekly reviews because of the fact that my new channel is now 6 days old as of this recording, and I have 13 subscribers as of this recording. But you know what? It's fun for me, so I'm going to do it, and hopefully more people will find me and rediscover me as we go along. So as for this episode, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that I rewatched the final 3 episodes of Season 1 right before I watched this episode. In fact, I watched Season 1, Episode 10, the finale, ended at 12:05 local time, and of course Season 2, Episode 1 dropped at midnight, 5 minutes earlier, so it was perfect timing. Like, as soon as the finale of Season 1 was finished, it just flowed right into the new episode. I didn't have to get up, or I didn't have to touch the remote or anything. It was pretty nice. But one thing that really struck me in doing that is that I found that Episode 2 was noticeably not as funny as the final 3 episodes of Season 1, particularly the final 2 episodes, which I think are the best of the series so far. So I was going longer periods of times between laughter, and I wasn't laughing as hard. And unfortunately, with Lower Decks, humor is a very huge factor. I don't say that in all Star Trek series, in fact none other but this one, but in this case, like, humor is a big deal. So when I'm not laughing as much, it reduces the overall experience of the episode. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this episode wasn't funny at all, and I'm not saying that it sucked or anything like that. I still think overall it was a pretty decent episode, and I did have some moments that I did really enjoy in this episode. I'll talk more about the things that I loved about this episode, things I did find funny, a little bit later on. I am going to start with my critiques, however, and the biggest critique is the humor, as I just didn't find this as funny as the final episodes of Season 1, and it was very noticeable having just watched them. I just didn't find the whole Ransom turning into a god thing as funny as it should have been. It's definitely a parody off of several Star Trek episodes, but in particular one called Where No Man Has Gone Before, which I will talk about more specifically later, because that's actually one of the aspects that I really liked, the kind of name drops that they put in this episode. I really enjoyed, so we'll get to that later. But speaking now of the fact that because it was a parody of a common Star Trek trope, I expected it to be funnier than it was. There were some funny moments, such as when the helmsman says to Captain Freeman, "Captain, there's a giant head approaching our ship," which was a callback to all of these silly things that were floating in space in the original series, like the floating Abraham Lincoln, and there's one episode where a giant hand grabs the Enterprise. So that was funny, but overall the moments of hilarity were too few and far between, unfortunately. I really thought they overplayed the whole Ransom loves to weightlift thing. At first when he was going, feel the burn, like I laughed, but then it just went on for too long, and it was like, okay, we get it. Ransom is obsessed with weightlifting and working out. I mean, so what? A lot of people are, and there are much worse things you could be obsessed about. So, whatever. So I thought that got a little tired after a while. This episode also continues the same problem that I had in much of season 1, which is that the Tendi and Rutherford B-plot was lacking. I didn't really like their B-plots that much throughout most of season 1, and they were often paired together. I actually thought in the final 2 episodes, when they kind of integrated, or final 3 episodes actually, they integrated Rutherford and Tendi more with the other characters, and I thought that worked better. To always have them having this separate B-plot, I was hoping they would start to move away from that in season 2, and I generally don't think that their B-plots are as good, and that was the case here as well. I just didn't really find a lot of humor in that subplot either. Now, aside from the humor, there's also the story aspect, which really focused on the relationship of Mariner and her mother, Captain Freeman. And I was a bit disappointed in this, because I had just watched the finale of season 1, and at the end of that episode, they're saying, oh, we're going to start this new relationship now, this new dynamic where we're going to be a team and work together, and you're going to do things off-book, and I'm going to kind of look the other way, and we're going to work together. And I was really disappointed that ended up being a one-episode thing. I had assumed that it was going to be a season-long arc, and the way that it is portrayed in the finale of season 1, it certainly seems that way. But it kind of falls off after just one episode, and I mean, it could have been worse. They could have just had a throwaway line saying, yeah, we're not doing that, and just moved on and reverted back to their previous relationship, which would have really sucked. But they at least gave it one full episode of their time. But I think the problem was that they went a little more extreme than what I had in mind after the season 1 finale, whereas Mariner gets to do whatever the hell she wants, and yeah, that's going to be a problem, but that's not really what they talked about at the end of season 1, the way that I understood it. I kind of wished they had followed through what they had set up, and they had set it up as a season-long arc. So it was disappointing that it ends up being only one episode. However, on the bright side, it does appear that they're going to reform the relationship yet again. They're really working on their mother and daughter relationship, which is good, and they're rediscovering it yet again, and it'll look different yet again, which is good. I would much rather see that than for them to revert back to their old ways, the way that they were behaving much of season 1. That would be terrible. It would be a huge step backwards, and I don't think that is what they're doing. I think they're just rediscovering their relationship again, which is fine. I'm okay with that as long as that is indeed the case. So those are the things that I didn't like as much in this episode, but let me get into the more positive things, the things that I did enjoy and did find pretty funny. Okay, when talking about the things that I love about this episode, I have to start with that opening sequence, as I do think that was the strength of this episode. I thought it was a great way to open up the season, dive right into Mariner in the midst of the action, escaping from a Cardassian prison, and of course, I knew immediately that this was just a holodeck recreation, because for one thing, Lower Decks has been very good at attention to detail, and it would be unlike them to make a mistake such as to have the Cardassians being at the same status that they were prior to the Deep Space Nine finale, because the Deep Space Nine finale definitely left the Cardassian society in shambles, and while we don't know exactly where they stand at this point in the timeline of the Star Trek universe, it is doubtful that they have returned to being exactly how they were before. So that was hint number 1. But then as soon as Mariner started spewing all of this stuff about her problems with her mother, that was the dead giveaway after having just watched season 1 episode 9, in which Mariner uses the holodeck for therapy by recreating the crew and having a fight with her mom and a holodeck version of herself. And she comes out of that going, oh, that's the best therapy I've ever had. And it ends up being a lot better than this stupid bird person therapist. Not bird person from Rick and Morty, but this little bird. And who is obsessed with food analogies, which is pretty funny. But the holodeck was therapeutic for her. So the fact that she's, talking about her problems with her mother was a dead giveaway to me that, yes, this is a holodeck recreation. And then once we see Boimler, that's also another giveaway. And then Boimler gives it away. He says that he's just the hologram. And I like that they revealed that before the ending and not tried to make this in some sort of big surprise before the ending of the scene, I should say. And reason why I thought this was so good is because it was a very strong and funny parody of one of my favorite all-time Next Generation episodes, which is the Chain of Command Part 1 and 2. The funniest part of the episode to me, the entire episode, is when Boimler says, they keep showing me all these lights for some reason. that just cracked me up. So that was good. It was a great way to re-immerse us into the new season. So I enjoyed all of that. Now, as for what I did enjoy about the main plot, even though, as I said, overall the humor was lacking, I love it when they drop the obscure references to TOS. TOS, of course, as Ransom explains in the season 1 finale, stands for These Old Scientists. But I love when they drop those obscure references. No, it stands for the original series. And I just recently, within the last couple of years, rewatched all 79 episodes of the original series. So all of that stuff is still pretty fresh in my head. So when they drop these references to the original series, I get them. I know exactly what they're talking about. In this case, they kept dropping the name Gary Mitchell. And Gary Mitchell appeared in the second original series pilot, Where No Man Has Gone Before. So remember, the first pilot was The Cage with Captain Pike, didn't get picked up, but they did a new pilot with Captain Kirk called Where No Man Has Gone Before. Gary Mitchell was Captain Kirk's old friend who ends up developing ESP, as they call it, and is very similar to what happens in Ransom in this episode, except he doesn't start becoming a giant and his head doesn't float into space. Like, they took it a little further here, which makes sense why Ransom was like, Gary Mitchell was nothing, or something like that. But it starts the same with the way that Ransom's eyes start glowing is dead on to what happened with Gary Mitchell, and then he starts floating. And I forget who it was, one of the crewmen was like, he's floating, or hovering, I think they said he's hovering. Which also happened. And they kept making references to that and like, well, how did they defeat him? Well, Kirk ended up throwing a boulder on him, but I don't think that's going to work for Ransom. And the hilarious part to me was that in the end, they did throw a boulder on him, but at that point, they didn't need to. Like, he was already defeated. They threw a boulder on him anyways, just because that's what happened. And the Where No Man Has Gone Before episode, which I thought was great. I actually did really think it was funny that they defeated him by Mariner kicking his headless body in the nuts several times. And I'm not one who usually finds kick in the nuts humor very funny, but I do think it actually worked here. I think because his head was floating in space, and she kept doing that, and then they put a giant boulder on him. So that was good. And the callbacks to the original series I always enjoy. As I said, I do wish that they had lived up to the potential that they could have had with the parody of Where No Man Has Gone Before in other episodes, but there were aspects of it I really did quite enjoy. So overall, this was a decent episode. I'm going to go ahead and give my rating for this episode out of 10. So 1's the lowest possible score, 10 is the highest possible score. And I think that out of 10, I will give this a 7. Pretty solid, decent episode. I think 7 was the score I often gave to this earlier season 1 episodes as well. Decent start to the season. Hope that they can get back into the high quality stuff like the end of season 1 a little sooner in the season this year. But this is overall solid start, and I overall did enjoy it. So a very solid 7 for this episode. Alright, thank you so much for joining me for my review for Season 2, Episode 1. So next week for Season 2, Episode 2, I'm going to be doing something very special because my brother Mark, who some of you may know from Enchantment of Eternity, will actually be visiting me here. So we are going to do a review together. We're going to probably see if we can upload it to each of our channels. So it'll be kind of a simulcast review. It'll act as both of our reviews next week. So that's pretty exciting, and I'm looking forward to that. So please check that out. Please subscribe. Check out all of my other material, specifically Star Trek material. I've got TOS and TNG least favorite and favorite episode list up there now, and I have DS9 coming next week. So please check out all of that. And I will see you soon. Bye-bye.